perspective never apply. It's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is February 17th, 2021. Today is a special episode of Fathers and Sons. We talk to men raising boys about what they do, how they navigate raising boys today, because we live in a pretty much anti-masculine, anti-man environment. Later in the show, we're going to talk about the greatest light therapy unit ever made, and I'll explain why that is. But before we do any of that, of course, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is none other than Legendary Foods. Legendary Foods, the makers of the amazing Tasty Pastry. Their new red velvet Tasty Pastry has 20 grams of high leucine protein, 5 net carbs, less than 1 gram of sugar. Is so delicious. It's the snack you don't only want to eat, but you probably want to get it for your kids as well. And of course, if you don't want to buy Tasty Pastries, by going to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and using code SHR10 to save 10% off, you can try to win them, because during the commercial breaks, there is a secret word. And if you email that secret word when you hear it to onair@superhumanradio.net, you're entered to win. And we are giving away tons and tons of boxes of Tasty Pastries. We're giving away more than one a day right now because the response is so overwhelming. So get on that as quickly as possible. And let's see what else we have to talk about here. There are shorter commercial breaks in the show. I'd like to hear from you. On air at superhumanradio.net. Are you happier now that the commercial breaks are shorter? And also, I'm very sad to report that Rush Limbaugh has died at 70 years old. He's come to lung cancer. He was an amazing journalist and probably the largest radio audience in the world. Sadly, he's gone, and my heart goes out to his family and loved ones. And now, without further delay, we are joined by Eddie Gallagher. And let me get my screen set up here. I'm missing something. There it is. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Carl.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, I know a lot of people want to talk to you about a lot of things, but I'm wondering how many people want to talk to Eddie Gallagher about raising children.
That is, I don't get those questions very well. So yeah, I'm glad to talk about something different.
Yeah, and it's actually very important. I mean, we all recognize that men are under attack today. If you're a masculine man, there's something wrong with you. We have a lot of blurring of the gender lines today, and men seem to be treated more like terrorists than contributors to society today. I'm sure you see this as well, right?
Oh yeah, you see it. I mean, you see it all over the place. In today's society and in the media, but it's also crept into today's military. Unfortunately, just how they, the way I was raised in the military compared to these young kids today they're joining and the way they're being raised. I think there's a fine balance, but I definitely think they're going to the other extreme. And like you said, it's taken away from what men are made to do, and that's protect.
So you're a world traveler. Are other countries trying to overtly feminize their boys and into weaker men?
No, the countries that I've been to, you don't see that, and that's because those countries have real problems, and they focus on those real problems. I think America, we have it so good here that we create problems. We create things to bicker about, which is now we've created genders. To me, my personal opinion, there's a boy and girl. There's only 2 genders, but somehow they've managed to, I don't know what the number of genders they have now, but to me, I'm like, what are we actually arguing about here? I mean, this is how good we have it here, is we have to create problems.
Now, today we're talking about raising boys, but you also have a daughter. So you have your youngest boy is Ryan, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Then you have an older boy.
Yep. So Ryan's 11, Trevin's 20, and then my daughter Ava will be turning 17 this week.
Okay. Wonderful. And this is wonderful. And now that you're retired, you get to spend a lot more time with them, and that's a wonderful thing too.
That is.
So you grew up just north of me. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. You grew up in Indiana, right?
That's right. Well, I actually grew up all over the world. My dad was in the Army, so I moved around every 2 years until high school. I ended up in Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and joined the military out of there.
So that you already answered the question. Who influenced you the most as a young boy? I bet it's your dad, huh?
Yeah, I definitely would have to say my dad, and my mom as well. Traveling around, being a military brat, moving around every 2 years is, it's not the easiest. And then with my dad's profession, he was, gone as most military members are, doing the job or deploying. But he always managed, when he was home, to make time for myself and my brother. Never brought homework with him. You wouldn't even know he was in the military unless, every once in a while he'd show up in his uniform, or he'd take us to work. And then my mom, on the other half, she was a strong military spouse who, put up with the rigorous traveling and the demands of, the Army. And she did a hell of a job. Everywhere we went, she set up home and made sure we were taken care of. And we remained, because we moved around every 2 years and there was only 4 of us, we remained a pretty tight unit, as a family. We were always protective of each other. And so, that, I think a lot of that, growing up like that, it definitely influenced me to obviously do the job that I did and also raise a family in that job.
And so, I forgot to say I want to thank you for your service. And I don't even know if when people say that to you, if it really has the gravity that it should, because I almost feel like people say that like almost, God bless you, and they don't even believe in God. Somebody sneezes. But I don't want to insult the fact that people should probably say to you, thank you and your family for your service, because Andrea is that strong rock at home. She's the anchor at home when you're overseas. And so it really is, it's a family contribution to what you did.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. I mean, Andrea has been the rock in our family for the past 13 years, since we've been married. And that's what it takes. When people say thank you for your service, I'm completely grateful for it. And I'm glad they're thanking me, but it was my pleasure. I enjoyed every day that I was in for 20 years, minus the last 2, but I wouldn't have been able to do my job without a strong wife at home, taking care of the kids in the home front and making sure everything's getting done.
Yeah. Cause then you could be there with a clear head. You don't have to worry. Like if you have to worry about what's going on at home while you're out there, then it's a losing proposition entirely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my next question was going to be, who contributed the most to what you think a good father is? A lot of times there are other people in our lives when we're young. Like my father didn't want to hunt, but my friend Joey's father hunted and he took me hunting. So he taught me to love hunting. Did you have other contributors besides your dad and your mom?
I throughout my childhood, there was, I had other male influences in and out. Like I said, I moved around every 2 years. But growing up on military bases, there was other, friends of my dad that they were in the service, and they would probably, take us out. I was, big into Boy Scouts when I was little. So I mean, that was definitely influential. It was back then when it was the real Boy Scouts, where we'd actually go on hikes, long hikes and camping, and it was everything was sort of a kick in the ass. But that, influenced me as well. And that, the men that actually took the time to take us out and teach us, things like shooting, learning how to camp, learning how to survive, they were big influences on me as well.
Another organization that's been destroyed by the new PC culture.
Yeah.
Do you think it's different disciplining boys than it is girls? You have a daughter, you have a unique perspective.
Yeah. And I'm learning that as I go. It's I grew up when my mom was the only female in the household, just me, my younger brother, and my dad. So I didn't really grow up around, any sisters or anything like that. And the discipline in the house was done by both parents, but I think it's a little bit easier when you have 2 boys. What I'm learning now is, disciplining my daughter involves a lot more talking, involves a lot more, delving into why she's feeling a certain way. And that's just the way what I've learned is how females communicate. Whereas my sons, and, you know, my oldest son brought this to my attention not that long ago, you know, a couple years ago. He's like, you know, Ava, his sister, she gets treated differently when she gets in trouble or whatever, you know, or things like that. And I was like, yeah, because she's a girl and it's
Different.
It's different. You know, I have to talk to her, and I can't, you know, if I yell at her or, you know, if I'm stern with her like I am with the boys, it doesn't work. It doesn't compute with her, because then she'll just, you know, spiral down even more. Now, you know, I'm being mean, which I don't even think I'm being mean, but it took me, you know, it's been a learning process for me. And I'm like, okay, you know, when I have, you know, talk to my daughter, I go in there with a different mindset than I would with my boys. My boys, it's more fire and forget, like, get this done. You know, if you don't get it done, you're going to pay the man. You know, they understand that. It's just, yeah, definitely different. More kid gloves with a daughter.
Did you think being in the military, and your dad was in the military, that level of task, I don't want to call you a taskmaster, but, you know, that level of commitment to doing things the right way translates to your fathering skills, actually?
Yeah, I would think so. You know, I think, but I also think, you know, in the military, you know, being a taskmaster and getting things done, there's no room for, you know, we always say there's no room for failure. Like, we try to do everything, you know, right the first time. And then if you do fail, you're going to get hammered on. Whereas being a parent, you will fail. You will mess up. You're a human. And I think what I've learned is, you know, in the military, if I messed up, I would be extra hard on myself, be pretty frustrated. And I was taking that same, you know, idea when I was raising my kids, and then, you know, things didn't work out a certain way between me and them. It would be, you know, I'd get down on myself. But I've learned that, you know, it's better. It's also good for them to see you fail, or them to see you vulnerable and be like, hey, you know what? I did mess up on this. I could have done this better. It helps them grow as a human, and it helps us grow as a family.
Are there any non-negotiable rules in the Gallagher household as far as the boys go? Like, you know, because I don't know if you figured this out, but I figured out you got to pick your fights. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting about everything. So you got to, when I was raising my kids, I looked at things like, okay, this will put them in harm's way. That's absolutely not going to happen. This is, you know, I'm not going to fight about this. Do you have any non-negotiable rules? Like, hey, boys, don't ever do this.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you know, you treat women with respect. You never raise your hand to a woman. And then if you can help it, never raise your voice to a woman, you know, and that's non-negotiable. My youngest son and my daughter definitely fight all the time. And, you know, I think it took, you know, one time when my youngest son took a swing at her, and I was like, you know, I hemmed him up pretty quick. And I was like, that's the last time you'll ever do something like that. And he took that to heart. You know, I can tell there's times where he's looking at me like, is this going to stop when they're arguing? But that's a big non-negotiable. And then the other non-negotiable rule is church. You know, we go to church every Sunday, and we had a conversation with my daughter not too long ago. She wanted to work. She works at the restaurant down the street, but we're like, nope, it's church and then your, you know, job. So right. That's also a non-negotiable rule.
Is it as much? I mean, I grew up going to church every Sunday with my father.
Yeah.
Is it as much the relationship with God and Jesus, or is it the fact that you make commitments in life and you stick to them, or both of these equally important when it comes to church?
I think it's they're both equally important. You know, that comes down to faith and your commitment. So yeah, it's, you know, I want them all to have a relationship with God. And, you know, when you're young going to church, and I was raised Irish Catholic, you know, mm-hmm. Church every Sunday, no matter what. And, you know, there was a lot of days we go to church and nobody, you know, we didn't want to go, and there's always a fuss getting to church, and usually people, you know, none of us were in a good mood when we got there. But the point is like, no, we go no matter what. And I also think that brings the family closer together. You know, especially nowadays, there's so many distractions out in the world with, you know, the iPhones and the social media and whatnot, you can lose your kids in a heartbeat if you don't make them spend time with the family, you know, put the phone down, focus on what's important. And so that's why, you know, the one thing where we say is church is non-negotiable. You know, other things, you know, kids may opt out of some family things if they have, you know, a job or something else to do, but church is not one of them.
When those learning moments come up, do you think that there's certain qualities that are most important for young boys to learn in order to be successful, productive men later on in life?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think, you know, the one thing that I see with my children or my two boys is, you know, you always look somebody in the face. You always look at them in the eyes when you talk to them. And I don't care how old they are, you know, you show respect. You show respect and you'll get respect. That's number one. And then confidence. I was like, that my kids are ultra confident, and that's from my wife. My wife is the most confident person I have, but I see, you know, that's huge as well, and not to let anybody tear them down, or, you know, just because somebody says something negative, it doesn't mean that, you know, that's the end of the road. It's, you know, learn to ignore the negative and focus on the positive on everything that you do. It's, you know, that's huge. And I think the other one is, you know, doing things that are adverse. Adversity is huge. Pushing yourself, do things that make you uncomfortable. I think, you know, and that's always a fight to try and get the kids to do stuff like that. But once they have done it and accomplished whatever adversity that we're going through, they always feel, you know, 100 times better on the other side. And also they've learned that they can push themselves to a certain limit.
You have a very, very level demeanor. I've seen you in the news, you know, and when all this stuff was happening, and you seem to have this sense of calm.
Yeah.
Were you like that as a young boy, or is that from being put into positions and being trained as a high level operator that you guys like? Because we all know that the second you're lost, like you're gonna lose the edge. Were you always that way as a young boy as well? Or is that something that you learned?
That's something that I, you know, learned over time in the military as well. You know, as a young boy, I was a wild kid. You know, I wasn't the best behaved. I wasn't the best in school. I was always, you know, out and about doing things I shouldn't, or not paying attention to things I should. And I think I just needed direction. And that's what the military gave me when I joined. They gave me direction. And then through my course in the military, I learned emotional control. Especially when doing the job, you have to control your emotions. And I think that's just transferred over since I've gotten out. You know, the second that you let your emotions get the better of you, or, you know, you fly off the handle about something that you don't agree with, you've just lost whatever conversation or argument that you're in, because now the person's like, well, this person's just letting his emotions get the better of him. And, you know, he's probably not thinking clearly right now. So I definitely have learned, you know, emotional control over my course, especially in the SEAL teams with, you know, everything that we're put through and we're asked to do. So yeah, I think that it definitely has had an impact on me.
And that has to help being a father too, because I remember those moments when I became the a-hole in the room. And you're right. Like I lost. Even if I was right, the second I acted like that, then I was the problem. And so that has to help you being a father also, that you just don't go from 0 to 60 that fast.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, not to say that I haven't done that in the past where, you know, I think everybody has their breaking point, no matter what stress they have. But, you know, you can see it, like if you lose control and you start yelling or, you know, throwing a fit about something, you know, your kids are looking at you 24/7, you know, and that's another thing for, you know, for parents, especially new parents or whatever. Your kids are constantly looking at you no matter what you think, and they're going to mimic exactly what they're seeing. So, you know, you got to think about that all the time, you know, on how you react to situations, because the way you react is the way they're going to react, and the way you treat people is the way they're going to treat people.
One of the problems that men have today is, they love to say that we're aggressive, toxic masculinity. The reality is that part of our evolutionary trajectory depended on men being aggressive. Otherwise, we'd all be starving in a cave somewhere and no one would have gone out hunting. But with that being said, do you talk to the boys about aggression, when it's appropriate, when it's not?
Yeah. Oh, I do. And, and that's with young boys, that's always a conversation you're going to have as they, get older. Because, they start hit a certain age and they start getting filled with testosterone and everything else, the aggression level, they want to release some aggression. And it's just like we talked about before with the controlled emotion, also controlled aggression. There is a time for it. My youngest son, who he's a very similar personality to me. He would get in fights all the time at school. And that's because we put out, don't let anybody mess with you.
Right.
And, he took that, of course, to the next level and was like, well, if this person messes with me, they're going to get the business. So then I had to have a sit down and talk with them. I'm like, not everybody deserves to, go fisticuffs or get their, beak wrapped just because they said something to you. I'm like, you have to, give that person a chance to either, leave you alone or talk it out. And that's where I stand, and I've had to go into my kids' school a couple times after fights where they've said, I asked them what happened and they were like, well, he told them to stop 2 or 3 times. They didn't. And then he ended up, whacking one of them. And that's where I'll tell them, I'm like, well, that's on me. Like I told him, that's how I raised him. And that's how I'll continue to raise him. I think nowadays with these kids, the fighting is, a no-no, and fighting's looked at as evil. And also, they're like, oh, well, he should go tell on him and have somebody else solve his problems. And I'm like, well, that's not the way I raise my kids. Like they solve their own problems, and we've had, multiple talks about that, which I think we're seeing headway on it, where my kids, especially my youngest, is learning to, stay away from getting in fights, but at the same time, also sticking up for himself and sticking up for others.
Yeah, I know. And that's not a popular attitude to have today. I remember when I was raising my kids, you weren't supposed to slap them or not slap them, but hit them on the butt. I mean, my father used to give me beatings, but you know what? I worked on the racetrack, and when you had an unruly horse, they tell the jockey, take him out and straighten him out. And what that meant was you take him out on the track and you just go to work to him with the whip. One time, you just whack him everywhere. The horse is dancing around. He doesn't know where the whip is coming from. Then every time you want that horse straightened out, you just got to show him the whip and he straightens right out. You never have to hit him again. Yeah. And my father used to wallop me, like he kicked me up a flight of stairs one time for breaking somebody's window, and I was wrong. But like today, he would have been put in jail for that. And that's why we have kids today that just do whatever they want. Their parents are like, now, you're not supposed to do that. And no, they don't know. Their brains aren't fully developed yet.
Yeah, I think nowadays, you got to think of a different mode to punish them just because of these, the world we live in now. So, I mean, what we figured out is, you take away their time or take away their phones. That's the stuff that all these kids want to do nowadays is be on their phones or play games. So we'll take that away. And I found a very, very interesting method years ago when I was a buds instructor at the time. I would just, if my kids did something and I just beat them through physical exercise, I would be like, okay, I had a 1/4 mile loop outside my house and I would just make them run miles. And then if I caught them walking, they started at 0. And sometimes they'd be out there running 6 to 7 miles and they hated it. But I'll tell you what, that threat was, always there. Like, okay, well then you're just going to go run laps, and they straightened up real quick.
That's funny, because my next question was, do you want your boys to be involved in physical culture as a life choice, or what about even joining the military? Do you ever say, hey, look, if you want to, or do you try to discourage them in this day and age?
No, so I definitely don't. I don't encourage them to join the military. It's not. I want them to do what they want to do. They know that I love being in the military. Most of the males in my family before me were in the military. So that's a choice they have to make. both my sons have shown interest in joining. I mean, my oldest, just brought to my attention that he wants to join the Army. And this kid is, he's a genius. He's straight A's, getting a degree in chemistry, but I think he wants to serve his country in some form or fashion. And that, that was a huge compliment for me, because I've never pushed that on him. But I think, when he sees me lead by example, he's like, okay, well, I want to do that too. And he knows how important, serving your country is to me. And then my youngest, of course, wants to be a Navy SEAL. It's what he's wanted to be since he was little. I leave that up to him. I told him I'd help him if he wants to start training for it, but he has to make up in his own mind if he's ready for that.
Do you give the boys latitude to disagree with you?
Yeah. I would say they can disagree. My youngest, not so much, because he's not at that level yet to have conversations where, he can disagree and try to prove his point. But my oldest, for sure. So he went away to college. He's a junior in college, and he's come back and sort of had conversations with both me and my wife about what is being taught in college, which is a lot of the opposite of how we raised them. And we'll hear him out, and we'll have these conversations back and forth with him about why we disagree with him. And it's a very, educated conversation. Nobody's getting mad. And that's the way I want him. I want him to grow up to be able to talk, to be able to agree to disagree, which I think as a society, we've lost that concept.
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't agree with me or I don't agree with you doesn't mean we cannot get along and be friends.
Right. I agree 100%. A lot of times when boys go through puberty, and so you have one that's gone through, you have one that's going to go through. So you have a good perspective. They in order to search for autonomy, sometimes they'll challenge their fathers. Like I remember I did, and it didn't last long, but there was that point in time where I felt like I needed to puff my chest out and be a man when I was young, to kind of break away from my father. I don't know if you experienced that when you were young, but a lot of boys do. Have you dealt with that? How would you deal with it?
I definitely dealt with it when I was young. I remember specifically, going through that when I was younger, trying to, I'm a man in the house now, until I was, whacked back down, reminded that I wasn't. My oldest son, I really didn't have that chance to see him go through that. I was gone.
Yeah.
90% of the year for, the past 20 years. So he was such an amazing kid, though. Like, he never really tried to defy myself or my wife. I mean, I think I can remember a couple times when I was home where there might be something going on, but as soon as I stepped in the room, he would automatically calm down and be like, okay, whatever you say. My youngest, he's already getting to that age. He's 11, but yeah, I can see it. He'll try and push back a little bit, when I tell him to go do something. So yeah, I definitely see that. And I think the key, for me, is I don't automatically snap back at him like, how dare you disagree, or how dare you try and challenge me. I'll let him sort of hang himself a little bit, and give him enough rope. And then I'm like, okay, do you see where you went wrong? And he's like, oh yeah, okay. And you see who's the man of the house. Yes. All right, now get up, go do your chores.
Right.
It's but yeah, I think that's just natural. Like we talked about earlier, once they get to a certain age, their bodies start changing, and they, start getting, testosterone flowing through them. Yeah, they want to prove themselves. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's good. Yeah. I let them do that. And I think there's a fine line, though. Like, I tell him, my youngest son likes to challenge other males as well. He's just got that. He's like, oh yeah, if he doesn't agree with what they're saying. But I'll definitely let him know, not to disagree with, other grown males. If they tell him to do something he doesn't agree with, then come to me first.
Yeah, and I so he's actually challenging other people. You're saying, other men.
Oh, he's got an attitude on him.
It's not the worst thing in the world, in my humble opinion, because I kind of feel like that you're less likely to get pushed around, but you will get pushed back, and you'll learn your limits at some point in time.
Exactly. And I think every boy needs to know his limits. I can give you a good story is, when he was 8 years old, I was playing basketball with my oldest son. We were at the basketball courts, and I could see my youngest son get into an argument with a boy in the neighborhood. And my youngest son picked that argument. He picked a fight. I could hear what was going on. And this kid, they were mouthing back and forth to each other, and they were like, "Oh, you want to fight?" And they both agreed that they were going to fight. Well, my youngest son kept looking over at me. He knew I was there, which is why he was puffing up his chest. And the other kid looked at me, and I was like, "Well, all right, you guys go at it." And my youngest son got his butt whooped, and he kept looking over at me to help. And afterwards I stood him up. I'm like, "You started that. You ran your mouth. This is what happens when you run your mouth." I'm like, and it was a lesson learned for him. Like
that is, as a father, that had to be so tough. But what you did was so right, and a lot of men wouldn't have the courage to let that happen. But it was so right, because when that happens at a young age, now all of a sudden you say to yourself, well, let me think about this before I start acting like this and what could happen, because it's happened once before. And having it happen at a young age is a lot better than in your 30s at a nightclub somebody's going to shiv you as you walk out the door.
Yeah, exactly. It makes them think twice, before opening their mouth or involving themselves in a situation where they should not be involved in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We've got lots more to talk about, and we're going to also talk about Eddie's new book, The Man in the Arena. I got to tell you something. It's one thing to have an editor reviewing your book, but you got the DOD reviewing your book. That's an editor of a whole different type. So we're going to take one quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned. You're watching and listening to Superhuman Radio. Whoa. Oh, that must have been the phone pinging. Is that what that was?
That's my computer. I don't know how to shut this off.
All right, don't worry about it. It just wakes everybody up. Make sure they're alert. That's P3OM uses a patented natural process to upgrade a well-researched probiotic strain that doubles every 20 minutes once inside your body. The patent proves this strain is proteolytic, meaning it digests protein. It's antiviral, antiretroviral. It eliminates pathogens and waste and is maintainable in the human digestive system. What it does better than any other strain is fight the bad guys, bugs like parasites, viruses, and other pathogens in your gut, and it doesn't require refrigeration. If you suffer from bloating, gas, indigestion, or you just need extra protection from viruses, aka bad bacteria, then I'd suggest trying this super single strain probiotic proven to wipe out bad bacteria. Go to bioptimizers.com/SHR to get a 10% discount coupon with code SHR10 and free shipping on all products. Or save even bigger by signing up to one of the plans to get as much as 38% off. That's bioptimizers.com/SHR. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000. Or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Abundance. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. I got to do a little plug for a sponsor here.
Okay.
And then we'll right back into it. So I'm a big fan. I've talked about on this show for now almost 16 years why I hate scales. Because all they do is measure your effect in reference to gravity. They don't tell you anything about your body. You could be ripped to shreds and be 300 pounds, and that's very different than being obese and 300 pounds. But there's a new product out called the FitTrack Dara Smart Scale. It actually measures 17 different things about you: water content, bone, muscle, fat. I mean, it's so sophisticated that it shouldn't even be called a scale, to tell you the truth. It should be called a stand-on analysis, a body analysis device. Well, my audience can get a special deal, not available anywhere else. If you go to fittrack.com/SHR, not only will you get 50% off your order, plus for a limited time, you'll also save an additional 30%. So that's 80% off if you use the code BUILD30, BUILD 30 at checkout. That's fittrack.com/SHR. Save 50% off plus an additional 30% off your order with the code BUILD30 at checkout. Don't miss out on this amazing limited time offer. fittrack.com/SHR with the code BUILD30 at checkout. You get it. This is not a scale. I've talked bad about scales for years, Eddie. I don't think they tell you anything. Just like BMI. This thing uses a dual frequency sensor that has 4 pads on it. It can tell you what percentage of your body is bone if you're dehydrated. I mean, it's really a very sophisticated device. Yeah, no, I know. And I just want to plug them because I love it. I use it myself and it's fantastic. I also want to do something else. So we've had the graphic up with Ryan there, but I want to put a picture of Trevin up real quick as well. You and Trevin. So we give him some equal time. Yeah. Dogs. Are those French bulldogs?
Yeah, we got 3 of them.
They're nice dogs. Really popular.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're super awesome. We got a whole family, so we have a mom and dad and bred them, and we have the son. So they're full of personality for sure.
Yeah, they're cute dogs. So I have been doing a lot of death work lately. When my father passed away, it became very evident to me that my mortality, I was like, oh my God, I'm next. Like I didn't think about it till that second. And so I've really investigated death, and I realized that we're really afraid of nothing. I have this sense that if people understood their mortality earlier in life, they could get a lot more done, and they'd enjoy their lives more. What about you? Do you think any about mortality? And do you ever talk to your boys about mortality in general, especially in the job that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think my kids got a full lesson in mortality through my career. You know, they've been to more funerals than I would have been to, you know, in my entire span of all the teammates that I lost and, you know, good friends and brothers. I mean, we had, you know, it was their uncles. They called him uncle, you know, whoever it was, and you know, they had to watch them be put in the ground. So I can't even comprehend what their mind state is at that young age, like watching that go on, and then also sending their dad back over to deploy over and over while, you know, his friends are dying, doing the same job. But they definitely understand mortality for sure. I think that, you know, going through that, they know that, you know, we're not on this earth forever, and that we need to take care of ourselves. And that, you know, that comes down to just taking care of your own body and your mental state. And they're watching, and I think it's really awesome. Since I've been out, I took this whole first year being out to take care of myself and to fix, you know, everything, that all the injuries and everything that I gained over the past 20 years. And it, you know, it wasn't an easy road, but they watched me struggle through it, and they knew that I was trying to make myself a better person for them, and that I wanted to finish out, you know, the rest of my life being the best human being I can for them. And I think they've taken that on as well, you know, and it's, you know, you can show them as much as possible and teach them as much as possible, but they're also going to learn along the way as well. But they definitely exhibit signs of they know when to enjoy themselves. They know when to take a break. They know when to relax. And they also know, you know, working out, taking care of your body is important as well.
I got to put this up there because we have a viewer, Bill Bergman, who's a fan of the show, and he's been posting these, and I want to put them up. He said, people sleep peaceably in their beds at night only because tough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. Thank you for your service. Then he said, the nation which forgets its defenders will be itself forgotten. And he wants me to tell you, please tell him I'm a big fan of his. So there you go.
I appreciate that, Bill. Thanks a lot. And you are correct.
So, the last question I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you in a second, but first I want to ask you, have you ever seen the movie with Steve McQueen called Tom Horn?
I have not.
You got to watch it because it's you. It's you. Tom Horn was a famous Indian fighter. At the turn of the century, they hired him to do their dirty work with the people that were violating citizens in cities. In fact, Matt Masterson was the guy who hired him.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he got rid of all of their threats, they want to get rid of him. You got to watch the movie. You'll relate to it. It's a great movie. It's an old movie. Obviously, Steve McQueen has been dead a long time, but it's a great movie. So the last question I want to ask you at this part of the interview of Fathers and Sons is, when you're gone, how do you want your boys to finish this sentence? My dad was.
That's a tough one. I think what I want my kids to, remember me as is someone who loved them, who put them first. Most importantly, someone who loved their mother and put them first. Someone who loved their family, who was loyal to their family, and not just, them, but also, my brother, my parents. And, because I think if you have that base right there, then, everything else sort of falls into place. And I also want them to, remember me as someone who was, compassionate, towards certain individuals, and also someone who wasn't afraid to stand up and do the right thing, no matter how unpopular it was or how dangerous it was, that, I was willing to give my life, for this country and also for my family at any cost. That's how I want to be remembered most by my kids.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm sure they will. And I think the nation will remember you. I have a saying that we die twice. Once when our heart stops beating, and once again when the last person alive who remembers us, their heart stops beating. And I think that you're going to live a long, long, long time, because there are millions of people out there who you have become their hero. Really, I mean, I feel so fortunate to have you on the show. I'm so excited to be able to look you in the face and talk to you. Few people get that opportunity, I'm sure. But you've become a hero to many of us in this country because you actually embody what is good, what is right, and what still is smoldering under the dirt of this nation and is trying to come back to life. Really.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment.
Yeah. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the book. I'm really excited about the book. Stay tuned. You're watching and listening to Superhuman Radio. We'll be right back. Folks, I'm pleased to announce that Pure Nootropics is now carrying the antioxidant alpha-lipoic acid in its bioidentical natural form as R-Ala. R-Ala provides protection in many areas and has even been shown to promote weight loss. Check out the interview I did on episode 2608 back in October to learn more. Our friends at Pure Nootropics have been bringing you great products and deals since 2013, and they have another one with R-Ala. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure and use code SHR30 for a whopping 30% off. Level up. Go Pure. Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to massage therapists can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today. TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. At the top of the hour, we're going to talk about the greatest light therapy unit ever made. I'm going to tell you why I say that. And it's very, very interesting. So stay tuned for that. We're talking right now with Eddie Gallagher, and we're going to talk about his new book, actually. So you really went through it for a while there. You think there's anybody who doesn't know your story out there?
I'd be surprised if somebody didn't. I think there's plenty of people that don't know the truth about the story.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because the media painted you a certain way, right? They painted you as this rogue, guy, and you did all these heinous things, and really it wasn't true, and you were acquitted of everything. Yeah. And then on top of that, I thought it was wonderful that President Trump even offered you a pardon. Is that correct?
He didn't offer me a pardon. What the president did was he restored my rank.
Yes.
Yeah. The Navy wanted to, since I won the case and the Navy had invested so much time and effort into persecuting me or prosecuting me, however you want to put it, they were embarrassed when I was found not guilty by a jury of my peers. So they tried to double down and take away my retirement, which I'd been in almost for 20 years at that point. And they were also going to take the trident away from me. And the president intervened and said, you will not be taking away his retirement. He's going to retire with everything that he earned, and he will keep his trident. That got somehow miscommunicated, or the media, not even miscommunicated. The media wanted to report a lie, which they do a lot of the time. And they said that he had pardoned me, which was not true at all.
Well, thank you for clearing that up, because obviously that's all I ever heard as well. So the book is called The Man in the Arena. From fighting ISIS to fighting for my freedom. Both you and your wife, Andrea, worked on this book along with Andy Simons. It's now available in pre-order, I guess, because it's still being reviewed by the Department of Defense. But if you pre-order it, not only do you get a signed first edition copy signed by both Eddie and Andrea, but you get a challenge coin designed by Eddie and Andrea, and a vintage free Eddie sticker and a postcard from Eddie Gallagher, from the Gallaghers. That's really a wonderful package of stuff. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/Eddie Gallagher book, you can pre-order it there. What will people learn in this book, Eddie?
They are going to learn, like I said before, the truth about everything that had happened. I tell the story of the deployment in 2017, and then all of the events that happened afterwards, where I was, thrown away in military prison without charges. And then eventually, 3 months in, they charged me with murdering an ISIS terrorist, among many other charges that they decided to make up and throw on there. But the media the whole time was, like we talked about, was just smearing me, making me out to be some kind of warmonger, that all I wanted to do was go over there and kill people, and sort of they try to paint me in this bad light. And, it was a pretty eye-opening thing where we got firsthand exactly what fake news was. And this story, I chose to write this book because this is our side of the story.
Right.
Which can also be construed as, biased, because it is my side and my wife's side. But the really cool thing is I put in the book, there are QR codes, and people will be able to listen to the whole trial audio, all the NCIS interviews, everything. Wow. So we have nothing to hide. We're like, here's everything. Here's what the media didn't report. And I think people will be pretty amazed and shocked to see how much corruption and deceit was going on during my whole process, on, with them trying to put me away for life without parole, just to make a political statement.
It's really sad what this country has come to. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are worried. I'm worried. I'm worried what's going to happen in this country, because all of a sudden it doesn't feel like the United States anymore. It doesn't feel like a place where, oh, that could never happen here. And I think we've all been saying that for so long, and we become so complacent that the powers at work here have turned it into that could never happen places, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think we are still the greatest country in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, even with all of our problems going on right now, these problems are minuscule if you compare them to other countries, you know, or other places in the world who have actual real problems. I think that the media gaslights both sides to make us turn on each other. You know, if you paid attention to the news, no matter what you watch Fox or CNN, you would think that, you know, the world was ending and that we're at the imminent break of civil war at any point. But yet, if you just walk outside, talk to your neighbor, who I have a neighbor here who is an avid Biden supporter, we get along just fine. We both have the same ideals and, you know, beliefs that we just want to make this country better for the younger generation or for our children. The way we go about it might be a little bit different, but, you know, we get along. I think there's not enough of that. I think people are glued to the TV or glued to the phone, which is, you know, and they're getting gaslighted, and they think that, you know, oh, this side hates us and this side, you know, or the other side hates us, and they disagree. It's we've lost the ability to, like we talked about before, agree to disagree. You know, I can disagree with you on certain topics and still be your friend. I do think that if we don't come to some resolution at some point soon, then we'll just continue down this path, and it's not going to be good at all.
You know, 9/11 did that for us, right? All of a sudden, we unified around a common enemy.
Yes,
and there was no me and you; it was us. And but wars don't do that anymore. You know, I never heard the word patriot in my household, but I didn't realize that we were a patriotic household. My father and his 5 brothers were all in World War II at the same time, and they did a whole article about them in the Brooklyn newspaper, you know, the Fighting Lenore family. But they never told me, like, oh, we're patriots. It was their actions. We don't have that anymore. Even when a war breaks out, it's so twisted and convoluted, and you don't know what's real and what's not, that people even divide over that. Oh, we shouldn't be there. We should be there. It's really a sad situation. I keep wondering, like, I guess aliens are going to have to land for all of us to go, okay, it's against them now, you know?
Yeah, we got to unify now. And, you know, we have been at war for 2 decades now, and that's the longest running war. And I think, you know, there's a point where, you know, people nowadays, we also have ADD. Like they can only pay attention to a certain story for so long before it gets old, and they're like, "Oh, is that really still going on?" Well, yes, this war in the Middle East has been going on. We're going on 2 decades now, and I think, you know, that was part of the problem with my case. Is you start having these politicians and these armchair quarterbacks then delving into what you're actually doing overseas, which, you know, we've been doing that the same way the past 2 decades, but now all of a sudden it's, oh, you're not treating the enemy nice enough, or we don't like the way you killed the enemy this way, so therefore we're going to charge you with murder. It's insane to sit back and like listen to, especially when I was going through it. And it's you know, it's like you said, one of those things where the country, we've like you said, we don't have a common enemy, and now we're turning on each other.
Right.
Which I don't think we should have to have a common enemy to be unified anyways.
No,
but
right.
You know, if that's what it takes, you know, I guess, you know,
we need it. You know what? When you were going through all that stuff, I would say to people that I knew, do you think ISIS does that when they kill or they behead a guy and then they post the video on all social media for all Americans to see? They got to be laughing at us. Oh, look, this guy killed his enemy and they want to put him in jail. They got to be laughing at us. They got to be thinking to themselves, these Americans are idiots.
Oh, that's for sure. You know, during the trial, at one point, I remember the prosecutors kept putting the picture of, you know, the dead terrorist up and trying to get the jury and media and everybody to sympathize with this terrorist. Like, oh, you know, he was 17 and he was forced to join ISIS and this and this. And I remember just leaning over to my lawyer. I think it was Mark Mukasey at the time. And I told him, I was like, do you ever think this ISIS fighter would have thought in a million years that he'd be all over American news, being played in a trial, actually getting people to feel sorry for him, and then they're going to throw away, an American soldier for doing his job. I'm like, it's completely insane. But that's where we're at. I mean, I think it's just like what we talked about before. America has it so good that we have to create these problems. We want to create drama, like, oh, look at this over here. It was that in a nutshell. Nothing was done wrong, but they wanted to create something out of nothing and create this big story around it.
There's that saying, good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Strong men. You ever hear that saying? It's like,
yeah,
it really is true. It's very true.
It definitely is. I mean, we're watching it unfold right in front of our eyes. But it's on us, like we talked about, to raise our sons to be strong men, to be men that can take on adversity and don't get beat down, and will do whatever it takes to get the job done.
I want to plug the book one more time, and that is The Man in the Arena. If you get the pre-order bundle, it includes signed first edition by both Eddie and Andrea. It also comes with a challenge coin, and it comes with the vintage free Eddie sticker and postcard from the Gallaghers. You go to shrnetwork.biz/Eddie Gallagher book to do that. One last question, then I'm going to let you go. Is that a POWMIA bracelet you wear on your wrist?
No, this is a bracelet. It's 9/11 when the Tower fell. So, I had bracelets for all my friends that have been killed, and it's, like if I wore them, they go halfway up my arm. So I chose this one because it represents everything that we were fighting for. So,
and 1968, I want to say, maybe 16. No, it was probably 1970, let's say, during the Vietnam War. They had the POWMIA bracelets.
Yeah.
I still have mine somewhere. The guy's name was Joe McDonald. It was that same metal with the black lettering, and they never found the poor guy either. So,
oh well, that's awesome that you're wearing his bracelet. This one was given to me by Bernie Carrick.
Oh, great guy, guy, brilliant guy.
Means a lot to me.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much for making time to come on the show.
No, I appreciate it, Carl. Thanks for having me on.
Take care. All the success in the world to you, Eddie. You and your family. Take care.
Thank you, my man.
All right, we're going to take one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the greatest light therapy unit in the world. I kid you not. I'm not just saying that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Make sure I'm doing everything right here. I'm producing these shows,
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Abundance. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order. The power of light can be truly life-changing and an important element for every superhuman. Because of this, I want you to experience the power of award-winning Seluma light therapy. Seluma utilizes NASA research technology to improve health at the cellular level and is cleared by the FDA to effectively treat a variety of pain, muscle, and joint conditions, as well as facial wrinkles and acne. Our entire team here at Superhuman Radio uses it. Its innovative shape-taking design allows for easy placement anywhere on the body. Choose from 13 different models. For an exclusive listener discount, go to shrnetwork.biz/Celuma. That's CELLUMA. And use code SHR10 to save 10% off of one of these award-winning devices. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Hey, welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're joined by Patrick Johnson. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great, Carl. And yourself?
Wonderful. Thank you for being here today. And you are the president and CEO of BioPhotus. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's correct. I am.
Okay. And BioPhotus makes an interesting product that we promote on this show. And I want to tell people why I think it's the best in the world. And I'm not saying this because you're a sponsor, because you are a sponsor. The product is called Celuma. So we had a company last quarter of 2020. Was it last? No, 2019. We had a sponsor that made a red light therapy unit. And it was the traditional red light therapy unit in a case. And you know, I get a feeling that the same manufacturer is making them all and everybody's just putting their own label on them. But it was, it stood up and it had alternating red and near infrared LEDs in it. And, you stood it up and you stood in front of it. And I contacted him. I said, there's evidence that the near infrared 880 to 890 nanometer wavelength is very effective for wound healing, but also for diabetic neuropathy because it liberates nitric oxide from hemoglobin and it causes blood vessels to feed the nerves again. I said, could you make one? First, I said, let's get a pair of fireman's boots and let's line the inside of the fireman's boots so people just put their feet in it, sit in front of the TV and do this. And I said, or at least can't we put it on a flexible material, maybe some canvas? And there's Celuma. That's exactly what Celuma is. It's the greatest. It's actually the evolution of where this device should be today. Look at it. It contours your back. You can contour your face. You can contour your leg because you want incident light to be hitting the surface of your skin pretty much in parallel to the surface of the skin. Perpendicular to the surface of the skin so that there's maximum penetration. Because if you're just using something that's standing in front of you, well, the light that's hitting the incident light that's hitting the surface of the skin completely perpendicular to the skin is going to go to the deepest. The rest of the stuff, it's not going to go deep at all because it's actually, because of a total internal reflection of the skin, it's going to be pushed away almost like what do I want to say? A pyramid, not a pyramid, a prism. And there you are. You guys have it. I was like, this is brilliant. This is the best thing to come from the light therapy world ever. Talk about it. How did you guys come up with this?
Well, there you go. There's probably nothing I could add to that. It's a long and sordid tale that dates back about 11 years. Where I was a very successful public company, corporate executive with the big house, with the big view, with the big cars and a big life. And I was miserable. And I worked in the orthopedic segment of the medical device industry. And our company was very successful despite the fact that we were in the depth of the Great Recession. And I came to the conclusion that I wanted my professional and personal life to be about something more, that I wanted to make a bigger contribution. So I quit my job, which I don't recommend at the height of a Great Recession in retrospect. And I went looking for a nugget to build a company around, to be my professional capstone. And I, 15 months later, stumbled onto the clinical research into low-level light therapy and was struck by two things. One, the depth and breadth of the clinical research into low-level light therapy, and the institutions that were doing that research, and the fact that it had never been really successfully commercialized. That you had, the core clinical research comes out of NASA. NASA using light energy to counter the effects, the detrimental effects of zero gravity on the human body.
Right.
And a lot of people globbed onto that, but they brought products to the market, sort of like what you were talking about, that mimic the technology but didn't practice the science.
Right.
So I saw that sort of as a strategic opportunity to say, let's design a device based on the science, not have a device and try to find science to support it. And
Right.
so we took the best science, and given my background in orthopedics, we have thermal devices in orthopedics that we use post-op to manage pain and accelerate wound healing, and they contour and wrap to the area of treatment. So intuitively, it struck me that a light therapy device should do exactly the same thing. And it turns out that there's a law of optical physics called the inverse square law that sort of promotes the optimal delivery of light therapy right at the surface of the skin, as you were talking about. And the saloon was born.
So do you remember, or did you stumble upon a company called Anodyne Research in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah.
So my dad, when he was alive, he had real bad diabetic neuropathy in his hands and his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Anodyne had just launched their product and they had a patent on it.
Right.
And there was none of the doctors in Arizona where he was living were willing to invest in this machine. And we couldn't buy one. They were very expensive. They were designed to be used in clinics, and you would sell, patient visits. Treatment. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the research on 880 nanometers, which is what they used, and I found 890 nanometer LEDs, which are, people don't realize that an 890 nanometer LED puts out 890 nanometers at its peak. But then as you go to the outside edges of it, it goes to 880, 870, 860, and so on. So I thought, well, it's got to be just as good. So Sun LED, I ordered 890 nanometer, or maybe it was 890 and these were 880. But anyway, I ordered the LEDs. They're the same ones that go in your remote control at the house that uses the infrared. And I built them on canvas. I got a power supply. And lo and behold, he used that thing every single day. And within like 2-3 months, his neuropathy went away.
Yeah.
But this is fascinating. But the thing that you did with it, by allowing light to be, my early career was optics. I went to school to be an optometrist. So I understand the nature of light and the physical nature of light. And when I saw what you did, I thought this is perfect because it's exactly perpendicular to the surface. So you have the most optical inertia to penetrate the skin as opposed to it glazing off. And it's really, really amazing. It's an amazing device. I use it because I have a little neuropathy now.
Right.
For other reasons. And I noticed a real big change real fast after using the Saluma device.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about LED, unfortunately, and I in fact I teach an entire class on the myths of low-level light therapy, because there's so much urban mythology created around the science, most of it created by clever marketing directors of LED light companies. Yeah. And so a lot of what we've been doing in the last 10 years is sort of dispelling those myths and explaining exactly, what makes light therapy efficacious. And it's a couple things. And, starting with the nanometers of the lights we're using. And so Saluma is unique in that we use 3 different wavelengths of light, because the wavelength determines the depth of penetration. The longer the wavelength, the deeper the energy penetrates. And so you have, conditions at different layers of the tissue. And so we want to treat those simultaneously. So we use blue, red, and near infrared and 8 infrared, like you're talking about. And you're absolutely right. LEDs are rated at peak output. And so, but most LEDs don't run at peak output. So you have to get a high quality LED, which we have in the Soluma, that has a real small range of output,
right.
plus or minus 5 or 10 nanometers,
right.
To be effective. And it's clear from the clinical literature that those wavelengths, 465 blue, 640 red, and 880 infrared, are supported by the vast majority of the clinical literature. So, it was, we didn't invent the science. We just perfected it in a way that had never been applied to the body. All of the LED devices that were on the market when we were developing the Soluma were rigid flat panels. They didn't contour to the area treatment, so they looked sort of more like a French fry warmer than they did a medical device. So, it was just kind of intuition and luck that we went, there's a better path up this mountain.
So the other thing that I noticed about your product is the quality of workmanship. And so I've spent a good long period of my life in the electronics industry. I started out in the radio side of it, and then the security side of it. And surface board technology, state of the art, is very identifiable. You have small little chip LEDs. They're literally mounted to the surface. The cheap LEDs are the big, I don't want to say, these big pop LEDs that they stick up so far. And that's like cheap. You could buy a bag of those, 1,000 of them for, $8. This is cheap stuff. The other thing I noticed is that the Soluma uses the state-of-the-art surface-mounted LEDs. They're just flat. They're little square chips. They're almost like a chip capacitor or a chip diode that you see on your iPhone board. I mean, the quality of workmanship is you guys didn't cut any corners, that's for sure.
No, and again, what makes light therapy work is delivering a specific dose of light energy within a very finite range. And to do that, you have to have really high quality components that don't have, a big range of performance. And so, we've been at this for 10 years, and a big part of the 10 years has been sort of overcoming the snake oil salesmanship and the charlatans who tried to bring, for lack of a better word, Happy Meal toys to market, as light energy devices that weren't practicing the science, that people weren't getting results from. And so we've really had to take a high, long road in educating the masses on the therapeutic benefit of light therapy. Because honestly, when I started researching it, I was really skeptical. It was like, I was a med device guy, and you're telling me that light energy can heal the body. It's like, that just can't be right. And it turns out, yeah, it is. And so it's effective across a broad spectrum of conditions, like you said, whether that be skin health or muscle and joint health, or wound healing, diabetic peripheral neuropathy. The clinical research supports angiogenesis and neurogenesis, the regeneration of vasculature and neural pathways that have been damaged by the disease, and is able to reinforce. I mean, when you think about it, we're subject to a variety of environmental impact in our lives. I mean, we can't help it, whether it's disease, illness, injury, bad behavioral habits, or just the normal aging process.
In fact, neuropathy is silent epidemic in this country.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people who don't have type 2 diabetes or any issues with blood sugar that are developing neuropathies. And it made, for the past 16 years that I've been doing this show, I'm in my 16th year now, I've been trying to connect the dots with neuropathy because I have model blood sugar management. And I have neuropathy in my hands and my lower legs. And it's like, okay, I'm looking for the common denominator. I know it's blood flow related. I have so much evidence that shows that the microvasculature shuts down and the nerves just go to sleep. They can be awakened again. That's the thing. It's kind of akin to when you were a kid and you sat on your leg to watch a great movie and then you stood up and you went, oh, wait a minute, and your leg fell asleep. And then as it slowly comes back, you get that tingling and you get that burning, and then all of a sudden that transition is hyperalgesia. And people think they're numb, but they're not numb. It's actually the nerves are so over stimulated that you develop this sensory change, and it all starts with reintroducing proper blood flow. And so this device, if you have any type of neuropathy, I want to plug this product first. We got to get deeper into all the different products you offer. So if you go to shrnetwork.biz/Celluma, and it's spelled CELLUMA, and use the code SHR10, you'll get 10% off plus free shipping. Now, there are several different devices that you offer, correct? I mean, there's all different sizes and so on. Describe that.
Yeah, and that's really, well, before we go to that point, I'm obligated as a FDA regulated medical device company to say the Celluma is not currently FDA cleared for treating neuropathy. We have an IRB approved clinical study that was about to start at the beginning of last year, and we all know what happened at the beginning of last year.
Yeah.
Having said that, we have lots of anecdotal reports, and the general clinical literature supports the use of low-level light therapy. But I just want to qualify it so I don't get in trouble with the FDA.
Yeah. Nice.
And so we have 13 different models of the Celluma, and basically the only difference is between them is the area of treatment and the mode of treatment. The efficacy is all the same. So from our $300 handheld pod, which is designed for spot treatment, up to our full body, $15,000 Celluma Deluxe, the same wavelengths, the same circuitry, the same software is used in all of them. So you're not, if you're buying a less expensive device, you're not getting less efficacy or less effectiveness in treatment. You're just getting a smaller treatment area and potentially a different mode of treatment. And so it really comes down to, what are you doing? And, I wanted to say underneath all of the science is one thing, and light therapy does one thing. It reestablishes normal mitochondrial function. And so if you have cells that are mitochondrial compromised, as you indicated, we're able to turn that normal function back on. We're not doing anything to the body that the body wasn't designed to do in the first place. We're just reversing something that happened with it. So depending upon how much tissue you've got involved, that'll really drive what model of the Celluma you want. And so if you're doing full body workouts and need your entire body to recovery, that's a good argument for having one of our large devices. If you want to isolate out, you have lower back pain, you have cervical neck pain, you want your skin to look healthier when you're 60 or 70, there's Cellumas specifically for that.
So Celluma works for acne. Is it the blue light that works for acne? How does Celluma work for acne?
Well, two things. There is a well-known association between blue light and acne. And that is because when you expose P. acne bacteria, the source of acne breakouts, to blue light, there is a phototoxic event created where the bacteria creates porphyrins. Those porphyrins rupture the cell membrane, and the bacteria essentially commits suicide. So in the absence of that bacteria, you can't have acne. The problem is that with the blue light, all you're doing is preventing future breakouts. You're not doing anything for the existing lesions. And so that's why we treat with blue light and red light, because we want to use the red light to knock down the inflammatory process of the condition and to accelerate the changing of fluids, accelerate the microcirculation, so we resolve the existing lesions as well as preventing future breakouts. So again, it's just kind of the more complex, higher road that we've taken in designing the product, not just to be able to say, oh, blue light, yeah, it treats acne, but to be able to understand the entire condition and use the science to treat the entire condition rather than just a symptom.
Interesting. Very, very cool. So since you come from the osteo side of things, then you know that PEMF, pulse electromagnetic fields of anywhere from 6 hertz to 60 hertz, seems to help bones knit faster.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of research done by NASA on PEMF because in a zero gravity environment, it keeps the progress of osteopenia, which, is it osteopenia? No, it's sarcopenia. I'm sorry. Well, both actually. It affects both osteopenia and sarcopenia by keeping the weightlessness from causing muscle loss, and the muscle loss causes bone mineralization to reverse, and the bones start giving up more minerals because they feel like they don't have to be as strong because the muscles aren't pulling on them as hard. So any plans on incorporating into your units PEMF?
Yeah, well, so the thing about zero gravity is that we are biological organisms that evolved on the face of the earth. And so our cellular function relies on Earth's gravity. And one of the challenges with sending astronauts to Mars, where the round trip is 2.5 years, is you're removing the environment in which the human body was designed to function normally. And so, in a zero gravity environment, you see bone entropy, you see muscle entropy, you see suboptimal performance of the cardiovascular system, suboptimal performance of the respiratory system. Basically, the body goes into a state of hyperaging. And so, what we're doing with the Soluma is we're turning back on those natural processes so the body can get back to healing itself.
Right.
So to your question, probably one of the biggest challenges in this market is there are so many opportunities. and you have to sort of, it's not going so much after the lowest hanging fruit, it's going after, for me, where we can make the biggest impact on well-being, on global health. And for us, one of those areas is wound healing. And so the Soluma is currently medically CE marked in the EU as a dermal wound healing device. And we have a study going on right now at the University of California, Irvine's Beckman Laser Institute, sort of replicating the clinical results we've been getting out of Europe using the Soluma as a wound healing device. Because, diabetic wounds are the leading cause of amputation in the United States, and they're tied to the obesity crisis. So there's a lot of drag on the healthcare system because of ineffective modalities of treating wounds. So that's something we're looking at. So anytime we look at a new indication for use, we have to say, where's the clinical study that says that the Soluma is effective in treating that? If it doesn't exist, we have to run it. So we have to pick our battles carefully.
Yeah. Okay. I just think it would be an interesting kind of stacking of technologies to have the Soluma pad that also puts out a pulse electromagnetic field.
Right.
To see what the combination of both light and PEMF would do. I want to plug the product one more time here. The product is called Soluma. I'm using it. Elisa uses it on her face. She said she can also see changes in the fine lines around her eyes. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/Soluma, CELLUMA, use the code SHR10, you'll get 10% off plus free shipping. We have the smaller unit, the one that you see in the middle picture there, where it's curved over the face. But I use it kind of like the way it's depicted on the on the left, I guess. No, you're on the right side. I'm trying to guess how people are looking at the screen. Around my leg, I actually put it. I switch it. I start out with one leg, and then it shuts off, and then I put it on the other leg, and I do notice a difference. I absolutely notice a difference in the sensory portion of this issue. I notice a change. It feels like it's going down further towards the feet and away where it was climbing up my legs. Now all of a sudden it feels like I feel it down below the knees. It's starting to move down, and I attribute it to the Saluma. I really do. Yeah,
I'm a road bicyclist, and so I'll jump on my bike and go out and do 50 or 60 miles and a couple thousand feet in climbing, and I hate the climb because of how I feel after it. And so I'll do a Saluma treatment on my calves and my thighs and my quads, sitting watching the TV after my ride, and I don't have any discomfort from the ride after I do that. So, if you're doing a lot of strenuous muscle workout, and there's great clinical research on comparing a cold immersion therapy, which is kind of the gold standard in sports medicine, to light therapy. Light therapy is more effective in promoting muscle recovery, because it's not just deadening the pain, it's actually helping the body get back to the state it was in before it was worked out.
Do you think you could say that there's a bit of anabolism taking place with the Saluma unit if you're using it after a workout?
I haven't seen research on it.
Okay. That would be fascinating, because you get a lot of bodybuilders. They'll buy the whole suit.
Yeah.
Fascinating. One more time. Let's plug this one more time. So if you go to shrnetwork.biz/Saluma, CELLUMA, you can use the code SHR10 to save 10% off and get free shipping. But go there and check the product out. I tell you, luckily nobody in my house has acne. But I know a lot of people who do have acne. They hate it, and they would do anything to get rid of it. Well, here's your answer. There you go. If stop using potions and creams and things that dry your skin out worse, trying to get rid of the acne, and use light therapy.
And we're seeing a lot of masking, right? People wearing masks and getting breakouts from their masks.
Yes.
Saluma's perfect for that.
Yes. Really, really good. Patrick, I want to thank you both for being a sponsor and also being on the show today to talk about the product.
It's absolutely my pleasure, Carl. Great talking to you.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. That's it for today. Joel Green will be on tomorrow. We're doing a show called Becoming Unconfused About Dairy. We're going to bust myths about dairy. Dairy is one of the favorite things for people to hate on today. We're going to get to the bottom of whether or not it really deserves to be hated on. It's linked to autoimmunity, if there really exists, what it's good for, what it's not good for, all those kind of things. So hope to see you tomorrow. Please share today's show, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching and listening today. Oh, by the way, the live stream is back up. So if you can't watch live, but you want to be part of the live show, go to superhumanradio.net and just click the listen live button, and you'll be able to listen to the show. Okay. See you tomorrow.